100.3 FM and AM 1490, Brattleboro's talk news station. It is 8 degrees out there and 8:21 on your Friday, December 15th. I'm your host, Olga Peters, and that lovely duo you heard just now between Kansas and Randy Holhut of the Commons. Here's my next guest, Randy Holhut of the Commons. Welcome.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Olga. Hi, Joyce.
Hi, Joyce. So glad you can be with me today. So, what is happening on the local front, Randy? It looks like changes at the library. And
yes, fie on fees, say foes. That's a Jeff Potter special headline, and I would agree in that people, libraries around the country are starting to discover that fines scare people. And not, forgetting to bring back a book or holding on to one too long, and the whole, I'm going to get fined, I'm going to, shame.
Oh, the shame is awful, yes.
Freak out that people do is keeping people from enjoying the library.
And when will this change go into effect to do away with fees?
Well, it's going to have to happen with town meeting in approving the budget, because there's a certain amount of money that comes from the fee box. And it's, as other neighboring libraries have discovered, it's really not that much money. Putney did away with it a few years ago, and they found out that it's pretty much been a wash. They have a conscience box at the counter that if you really are feeling guilty about having that book out for too long, you can throw a couple of bucks in there and ease your worried mind.
And, of course, while they're doing away with fees for overdue books, I have a feeling they're not doing away with replacement funds. So if you lose a book or you lose a DVD and the library has to replace it.
Yeah, you're still on the hook for that.
Mm-hmm. Well, fantastic. I'm looking forward to seeing how that conversation goes at town meeting. Do you think it will be a no-brainer?
I think so. Just because it's how successful it's been at other libraries. And the idea is just in keeping with the general philosophy of librarians like Star Electronica and Brattleboro and Emily Zervis and Putney and others around the country, of that the library is there to be as frictionless as possible for people, as a source of information and knowledge, and to not scare people.
Right. Well, fantastic. I think it's a great move, and I know we've been talking a lot about it on this show, but it may seem like a little change, but I think it's actually, over time, will prove to be a huge change.
Yes.
And this time of the year, we all say happy holidays, but it's not necessarily happy for everyone.
Yes.
And some folks in town are acknowledging that. So tell me about that, Randy.
Well, over at St. Michael's Episcopal Church in Brattleboro, they've been doing for the last few years the service called The Longest Night. And it's recognizing that this is the time of year that all the ghosts come out. All the people we've lost over the years, for family and friends, all the failures in our personal lives, all the things that the promises that never came to be, all the pain in our lives just gets magnified because of all the happy, joy that gets rammed down our throats this time of year. And with the darkness coming at 4:00 every afternoon, it's even worse.
Yeah. So
this is a chance to acknowledge the fact that not everybody is full of joy this time of year, and to acknowledge the pain and acknowledge the fact that this is also when the light begins again. That the darkness won't last for forever, and that there are reasons to feel that the light will be coming again.
Well, and it's also an opportunity for community too, to be with people who you can share your unhappiness with, and people who will listen.
Yeah, and that's important too, because you really get to feel at times that you're all alone out there.
Yeah.
In that, but acknowledging the ones who the empty chairs at the table is I think is an important part of the holidays, and remembering those the good times,
hmm
and
And,
remembering those people that provided them.
and remind me, when is the longest night taking place? The
This will
longest
be on
service?
Sunday at 4 p.m.
Sunday at 4 p.m. at St. Mike's Episcopal.
Yes,
And that is on
that's on
Putney
Putney
Road.
Road, and everybody's welcome. It's a non-denominational service, so it'll be easy to deal with.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for that, Randy. Again, that service is happening on Sunday at 4 p.m. at St. Mike's Episcopal Church on Putney Road. Now, another discussion we have been having in the community lately is about whether or not to purchase a ladder truck for the fire department. Tell me where that conversation has gotten to.
Well, it's gotten to the kind of simple truth that the one the town has now is worn out,
hmm
reaching the end of its service life, and had to be taken off the road. They've been borrowing Putney's ladder truck.
Okay.
I've been wondering why it's been parked out in front of
Yeah.
the fire station
You're,
the last couple of months.
you're like, why is Putney hanging around all the time?
Yeah, and the reason why is that they've just loaned the ladder truck to cover for Brattleboro, because it does go out frequently. The ladder truck on calls, an average of one a day. Fire Chief Mike Bacassi says. So it's a really essential piece of equipment, and Town Manager Peter Elwell has been trying to emphasize to town departments that replacing things before they break is always a good thing,
Right.
and budgeting for things, for major items like ladder trucks or dump trucks or police cruisers or other capital expenses is always better in the long run than having to spend money, bond for something at the last minute on an emergency.
Well, and we should note that one reason this message from Peter Elwell is so important is that Brattleboro's habit or tradition for many, many decades has been to delay maintenance in the hope that it will save money. But what Peter Elwell has been saying is that delaying maintenance is actually penny wise but pound foolish. It will kind of bite you in the end.
No one's ever saved money with deferred maintenance.
No.
No, I mean the old Fram oil filter commercial. You could pay me now or pay me later comes to mind here. And you spend the money now on the oil change, or put it off and spend the grand on a new engine.
So, one thing the fire department has been caught between is they have budgeted to replace this ladder truck, but they had budgeted for a different fiscal year than fiscal 19. And part of the debate is, well, do we buy now or do we buy later?
Yeah, and it's better to buy now because it's going to cost more later. And the good news is with the new fire station with the bigger bays, they won't have to have one custom built for Brattleboro like they've had to do because of the tiny garage doors on the previous version of Central Station.
Good point.
So they will be able to save some money without having to have a custom built one for the town. So I think they'll find a way to do this in a cost-effective manner. Mike and Lenny Howard, the management team of the fire department, they tend not to throw money around unnecessarily.
This is a good point. They are pretty frugal with their spending. Welcome back to Green Mountain Mornings on WKVT, 100.3 FM and AM 1490, Brattleboro's news talk station. It is 8 degrees outside and 8:35 on this Friday, December 15th. I'm your host, Olga Peters, and I have on the phone with me Randy Holhut from the Commons. Welcome back, Randy.
Welcome again.
Thanks so much for joining me today. I was looking at the Commons and lots of great articles, but the one that really caught my attention was one written by you, and it's about changes around transportation in Brattleboro, or not, I shouldn't say in Brattleboro, I should say to and from Brattleboro.
Yeah, it's become a real issue because it used to be, the Vermont Transit. Remember Vermont Transit?
I
The,
do, very
those
fondly.
green buses that got us everywhere.
Yep.
And then, it was a subsidiary of Greyhound, and then that was completely swallowed up by Greyhound.
Hmm.
And then we lost the bus station up at exit 3, and then
Yep.
we
That was the
now
beginning of the end.
and we lost our service to Boston and Keene,
Hmm.
and then we lost our multiple service, and then we're down to just one bus from New York or in Boston. And there was a occasion for cheering last fall because we had two buses serving Brattleboro.
Yeah, we had Megabus.
We had the Max bus that was running already between Burlington and New York, making a stop in Brattleboro. And then, I should say a Megabus rather, my mistake, that was doing the Brattleboro, the Burlington to New York run.
Hmm.
And then a bus from Massachusetts, Max bus, that was partially subsidized by Massachusetts, that was making one run a day from Boston to Brattleboro and back.
Right.
So you actually had some choices instead of the one Greyhound to Springfield. And now the Megabus just disappeared. They didn't give a reason why. They just disappeared, and they also stopped making stops in the Amherst area too.
Oh, interesting. Now that surprises me because with all the colleges around Amherst, you would think they'd have plenty of ridership.
Yeah, well, their bus stop was one of the malls in Hadley.
Okay.
Because Max Bus stopped its service because they lost their funding from the state.
Okay. Interesting.
So now we're back to one bus to and from, and which is rather inconvenient, especially since it takes a long time to get to Boston. You have to wait in Springfield for a couple of hours before you catch your connecting bus, and it's not exactly a speedy trip to New York with that.
No.
And then you have the train, so you only have that once a day.
Mm-hmm.
So what's a person to do that doesn't have a car and wants to leave town once in a while?
Or even someone who does have a car but maybe doesn't want to bring it to New York City.
Yes, which is always a smart thing to do.
That's my philosophy right there. Yeah, leave your car home.
Well, the good news has been that over the last couple of years, Massachusetts and Connecticut's been working on upgrading the rail line between Springfield and New Haven.
Mm-hmm.
And come springtime, there's going to be a shuttle service between those two places.
Oh.
So you're going to have up to a dozen trains a day running between Springfield and New Haven, and that would be connecting from New Haven on Metro North and Amtrak into the city, into New York. So you have more choices now for travel, and now you have a big parking garage in Springfield too to put your car in, and you don't have to wait for the 1 o'clock southbound in Brattleboro anymore. That once in a while shows up at 1 o'clock. You can take from the preliminary schedule that the state of Connecticut published, they'd be the first train that would be leaving Springfield at 6 o'clock. Excuse me. And would there'd be train service right through midnight.
Wow. So this is interesting because not only could it benefit folks in Brattleboro, but it almost, if ridership becomes really popular, Springfield could almost become a bedroom community for Point South.
Well, that's the idea.
Ah, okay.
But the other thing that's been working, Wyndham Regional Commission has been working on with their counterparts in Massachusetts and New Hampshire, is trying to extend the shuttle service up to at least Greenfield, which also has a shiny new station and parking garage.
It does, yes.
And quite possibly, and there's a chance it could happen, to Brattleboro. So imagine if there's 3 or 4 trains a day leaving Brattleboro to go connect to Springfield, where you can catch a train or a bus, because now there's buses running out of the train station in Springfield. to Boston or New York.
And how long is the train ride to either Boston or New York?
Well, depends on when you get it. I don't have the full schedule in front of me, but it could happen very soon. It's a matter of funding and equipment availability and cooperation from the freight railroads. And Wyndham Regional's working on it right now, and we could see more train service possibly next year. But we know for certain that the Springfield to New Haven shuttle will be starting in the spring. So there's some more options for getting out of town, but it's still an economic drag for Brattleboro because more people are trying to do without cars.
Right. And to a certain extent, Brattleboro is a pretty walkable community if you're living downtown. But you're right. If you want to get out of town,
It can be difficult.
It can be really difficult. Oh, well, I look forward to seeing how this story develops and what happens in the spring. Does this tie in at all to any of the funding that the state of Vermont has been putting into rail service lately? I know a lot.
Yes,
it has. Okay.
Yeah, the states that turned down the Obama stimulus money back a few years ago, Vermont gladly took it, and Massachusetts.
Okay.
And use it to upgrade the rail line. In fact, there's one piece just about to be finished. I was reading somewhere that the New England Central Railroad, that's the railroad that runs through Brattleboro, is about to upgrade the last piece between Northfield, Massachusetts, and Palmer, Massachusetts, so they can be able to have full weight trains. The modern big box cars and tank cars, be able to use the line from where it ends in New London, in Connecticut, up to St. Albans.
Oh, fantastic! Okay.
The other side effect of upgrading the rail line so Amtrak could run faster.
Right.
And then there's the other thing we've been waiting for and hoping for, and maybe it'll happen too, depending on a lot of different factors, and that's taking the Vermonter and running it up to Montreal.
Oh, I am waiting. It would make me so happy.
It would make me happy too.
If I could, get from Brattleboro to Montreal. But even Brattleboro to Montpelier or Brattleboro to Burlington and back in one day would be fabulous.
Yeah, and there's also, in terms of transportation, you probably remember hearing about David Blittensdorf buying a bunch of self-propelled rail cars for commuter service between Burlington and Montpelier. They want to start running sometime soon.
Oh,
if
fun.
he can get the approval to do it.
I hadn't realized they were self-propelled.
Yes, they are.
That will be interesting.
These are these cars date back to the 1950s. They're known as Bud cars after the Bud Corporation that built them, but they're a self-contained rail passenger car with a motor in it, and operated by a conductor, so it doesn't need an engine to pull it, so it can stop and start quickly and work with a minimum of fuss. And they've been fully retrofitted to be ADA compatible, and these recently came out of service were being used by in Dallas, Texas.
Huh. Okay.
For a couple of their transit routes. So he got a good deal on them, and they're getting fixed up and ready. You can see a few of them in the Green Mountain Railroad's repair shop over North Walpole.
Oh, fabulous!
A few of those cars are sitting there.
Okay. Well,
so there are all kinds of options out there that are exciting, and in a way, we're just kind of going back to where we were, because never mind seeing a 150-mile-an-hour train zooming down the Connecticut Valley. Just give us rail service as good as it was, say, in 1940.
Well, I know people forget that in the 30s, 40s, 50s, there were trains coming through Brattleboro almost every hour, and there were commuter and they were passenger and freight and the whole 9 yards.
Yeah, that and the mail. That's how the mail moved, also.
Right. Yeah, and it was sustainable. It was financially sustainable at the time.
No, it wasn't.
Oh,
But
it wasn't?
no,
I thought
the
you told me it was.
railroads lost a fortune on it. That's why they got out of passenger service.
Okay. Thank you. I stand corrected.
Because once the money went toward building railroads and building airports, the railroads lost.
Mhm.
Anyways, but that's what happens when you don't have money. Kind of like our newspaper.
Well, I was just about to ask you, I know that there have been some changes at the Commons, and I was wondering how my old stomping grounds was doing.
Well, we're in the middle of our annual appeal because, as a nonprofit newspaper, sometimes we really put the non in nonprofit.
Yes.
We're doing, the paper we're trying to maintain, excuse me, the editorial quality as best as we can. But we do have fewer reporters than we had a year or so ago.
Mhm.
We miss you, Olga.
Oh, I miss you guys too.
But the reality is that we've been dealing with some things that have been happening with the paper over the last couple of years, and really, the advertising that we have in the paper, which can vary at times, but it's pretty robust.
Mhm.
Still only takes care of about 3/4 of the cost of the newspaper. Excuse me. The other quarter of the cost gets made up by donors, by people who care enough about the idea of a newspaper who's free to all, and making the news and information free to all is important enough to them that they'll pick up the cost of their free newspaper.
Right.
So we've been taught as part of our annual appeal, kind of reminding people that this is a kind of an important thing: journalism and freedom of information, and the ability to inform the public without putting a toll booth in front of the information.
Mhm. Well, and it's always interesting to me that despite the really wonderful, ferocious love a lot of folks in the community have for the Commons, of the three-legged stool that makes up the Commons funding structure, which is ads, grants, and donations. The donations leg has usually been the shortest.
Well, I'd say the foundation leg would be even shorter, but because we haven't had a lot of luck there.
Okay, when I was there last, you were still having luck on foundations, so I didn't know about that.
Well, we had something good with the Thompson Trust gave us some money last year, and that was good. And thank you, Thompson Trust, for helping us out. But we're about a $500,000 a year operation. That's how much it costs to run the paper, pay the salaries of the people who work there, pay for the printing costs, pay the rent, pay for the computers, pay the taxes, and all the other expenses that come with putting out a weekly newspaper. Now that's for somebody like Rupert Murdoch, that's so changing the sofa cushions.
Right.
But for that money, you get an awful lot of newspaper, and we also help to help the community become better consumers of media. Our media mentoring project, which is in the process of being revamped for the coming year.
Oh, exciting!
With more workshops and classes around the county, to help you not only be better consumers of media, but also help you learn how to make it.
Which is so important because it is very easy to sit back and complain about media when you've never actually created it. Take care, Randy.
Thank you.
And here is Pat Pagano with his reliable weather forecast.